It's bigger, faster, and way cooler, but how much better are the PS Vita's graphics compared to the PSP's? Separated by over 6 years and a whole generation of consoles, the PlayStation Vita was expected by just about everyone in the gaming community to totally blow the PlayStation Portable out the water in terms of graphics. In reality, let's find out if this is actually true. So we're going to start by looking at a few different types of games, comparing the PlayStation Portable versions and then the PS Vita ones. So let's start with Samurai Chronicles, which is a Japanese hack and slash style game. So you can see the PSP's version has very muddy textures. The models are slightly blocky but actually look quite good for the time. Now the PSP had a resolution of 480 by 272, which sounds almost vomit inducing by today's standards. However, due to the fact that most games ran at native resolution and the screen was fairly small, they actually look quite sharp. Now moving over to Samurai Chronicles 3, the latest version on the PlayStation Vita, yes, it looks better. The models are a lot more complex, however the textures have had very little upgrade whatsoever. On top of that, the resolution bump isn't noticeable at all because this one is running at a much lower resolution than native res, and so it actually ends up being very little more than the PSP. Number count, i.e. the number of people on screen at one time, hasn't increased at all really, and so the only real improvement here is with the animations and the addition of very light shadows. So moving on to Resistance Retribution on the PSP, this was one of the top rated shooters of the system, and to be honest it's actually got a lot of the elements of its console counterparts. You can see that it's got a very muddy look to it, which is partly stylistic and partly due to try and hide what's in the distance, so there's a short draw distance. On top of that, the low resolution means you can barely see enemies when they're far away. Now many people instantly labelled Resistance Burning Skies as a poor looking game, but when you actually compare to the last generation, it's really impressive. So this isn't running at native resolution, but it is definitely sharper than the PlayStation Portable version, and there's noticeably less jagged edges due to the use of anti-aliasing. Now you can see that not only is the lighting and ambient occlusion significantly better, but gun models are also much more detailed, and there's more going on in the environments. They're less closed off and much more sort of open to exploration. Liberation on the PSP was developed as a top-down shooter rather than a FPS due to platform capabilities apparently. Now this is a bad looking game, it's rough around the edges, it has a very bland palette, it's a low resolution and the textures are just horrible. But then we move over to the PlayStation Vita and things change quite significantly. Killzone Mercenary is good looking by a console game standard, let alone a handheld, and the jump between these two games is absolutely giant. We've got ambient occlusion, we've got lens flare, we've got light tessellation, we've got depth of field. There's so many effects going on here, it really blows your mind. This is a gorgeous game which somehow still runs smoothly. And even though Resistance Burning Skies was actually a pretty good looking game, Killzone absolutely crushes it and really makes you want a Vita. So now on to Ridge Racer, which coincidentally seems to launch at the start of every Sony platform. So you can see on the PSP it actually looks quite nice. There's some very nice but slightly exaggerated lighting. The textures are on the poor side, but the frame rate is buttery smooth. Now on the surface, the PlayStation Vita version looks like a different world altogether. But if you actually look closer, it seems to be more just the car model that's been upgraded. The actual rest of the environment is still generally quite unimpressive. It's bare and textures have not really improved very much at all. But then again, there is a little bit more going on screen, but the frame rate has been lowered, so overall it's not really that much of a leap. So although the PlayStation Vita is hugely more powerful than the PlayStation Portable, its advantages are only really exploited in a very few number of games, such as Killzone Mercenary, but when they are, the results are stunning. If you take into account that the PS Vita has better speakers, a better display, better controls, and a better overall feel in the hand, it becomes clear that it offers a superior experience, and we start to realise how great a machine it is. Thanks for watching, guys.